Maestro Dr. Pandit Amaradeva has passed away this morning. Before we commence the bulletin this evening, the Capital Maharaj Organization and News First expressed our heartfelt condolence over the demise of this maestro.
We observe a moment of silence in remembrance of Pandit Amaradeva. Here's a look at the headlines.
Veteran maestro Pandit Amaradeva passes away. Government declares a week of mourning. Funeral scheduled for Saturday at the Independence Square with full state honours. Investigation regarding the Treasury bond issue will be directed to an independent and impartial judicial process. Statement from the President. Corruption is a crime. Professor G.L. Piri's questions as to why action is not being taken over the Treasury bond issue. Former Governor of the Central Bank Arjun Mahendran returns to the island. Onion farmers in Tambulla affected due to the lack of a stable price for their produce.
On our top story this evening, veteran maestro of Sinhala classical music and Sri Lanka's most acclaimed musician, Pandit W.D. Amaradeva, passed away today. Pandit W.D. Amaradeva was admitted to the Sri Javadhanapura Hospital this morning following a heart attack. Director of the hospital, Dr. Susit Senarath, said that Amaradeva underwent emergency surgery at the hospital.
He was brought
to the emergency room at around 6:30 this morning. He had a chest pain and was finding it difficult to breathe. He suffered a heart attack. He was subject to a test. It was revealed that the 3 arteries that carry blood to his heart were blocked. After treatment, he was moved to the intensive care unit. However, unfortunately, 45 minutes later, he passed away.
The late Pandit W.D. Amaradeva, affectionately known as the father of Sri Lankan music, breathed his last at the age of 88. Wanakkuwatha Mitivaduge Don Albert Pereira, born on the 5th of December 1927, was affectionately known by his adopted name Amaradeva. Albert Pereira was the youngest of 7 children born to Wanakkuwatha Don Ginoris Pereira and Balapu Waduge Maggie Bestina Mendes. Carpentry was his father's trade. Influenced by his father's trade, Albert Pereira took a liking to music at a young age. At the time, Wanakkuwatha Don Ginoris Pereira was a violin maker attached to the Morutumula Carpentry School. His father's trade and guidance played an influential role in young Albert Pereira's music career. The young Albert Pereira would often strum the violin while his mother sang hymns. Another influence was his elder brother, who taught Indian classical music to him. At the age of 7, Albert receives a Japanese-made tin violin, which was a gift from his father. Albert's early school days were spent at the Sri Saddharma Model Buddhist Mixed School. Later, he pursued his secondary education at the Sri Sumangala College in Panadura, Kaluthura Vidyalaya and Balapitiya Siddhartha Morutu Vidyalaya. During the film Ashokamala, Albert Pereira was introduced to Mohammad Gauss' master, who was composing the music for the film. Gauss, recognizing Albert's skill, enlisted him as the top violinist in his orchestra. The opportunity he received in the Ashokamala film opened up avenues for Albert Pereira to pursue his higher education at the Bhatkanta Institute of Music in Lucknow, India. Wanakkuwatha Mitivaduge Don Albert Pereira, written from Indian as Wanakuwapta Miti Vaduge Don Amaradeva, and he was given his name by Professor Edirveera Saraschandra. Amaradeva was instrumental in the introduction of a new music genre that consisted both local and Indian melodic patterns. Amaradeva also did research on the music modules of South India and Tamil music, which steered his music into a whole new direction. He contributed to the local cinema with scores of background music and voice, placing him in the Immortal Hall of Fame of Sri Lankan musicians. The late Amaradeva's song Ai Yamaku Kale Ale saw him contribute with not only music but in song and dance as well. He was the recipient of the prestigious Raman Magsaysay Award of the Philippines, the Padma Shri Awards from India, and the Kalakirti President's Award from Sri Lanka, as well as many other accolades. He etched Sri Lanka's mark in the global arena for creating the melody for the 1967 UNESCO Manila Symposium. He was also invited by Her Majesty the Queen in 1972 to compose the melody for the Maldivian national anthem Gaum Salam. The late Amaradeva leaves behind his wife Vimala, son Ranjan Amaradeva, and daughters Subhani Amaradeva and Priyanwada Amaradeva. He may be gone, but his music lives on. Pandit Amaradeva, may you rest in peace.
The inauguration ceremony of SLFP membership promotion program in Maharagama commenced under the auspices of President Maithripala Sirisena today.
A large group comprising of party seniors were present for this event. A new SLFP membership card was introduced for the new members of the party. To mark the occasion, the President presented cards to the new members of the party. Our duty and responsibility is to strengthen the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. When engaging in political campaigns, we must have an understanding on what our priorities should be. Priority needs to be given to the country and the people. As a country that has a multi-party system and as a country that is free and democratic, we need to take forward the force to strengthen the Sri Lanka Freedom Party for the country and the people. This responsibility lies with you and I. The image of politicians was tarnished due to their behavior. Therefore, if anyone serving for a political party wants to save the party, take it forward and achieve victory. One should be exemplary in character. Some say that the government will collapse in the near future. That will not happen. You cannot build a government by having the party at a weak point. Let's strengthen the party. Let's bring the people together. Let's present a better program. As the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, we need to be confident that we can overcome the challenges in creating a Sri Lanka Freedom Party-led government in the future. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party, founded by the late SWRD Bandaranaike, tumbled and rose time and time again in the face of challenges. This is a historic political party and no one can challenge it. The Chief Minister of the Western Province, Isuradeva Priya, presented a special memento to the President on behalf of the SLF members of the Maharagama electorate.
Welcome back to the news. President Maithripala Sirisena, addressing the event in Maharagama, also expressed his stance on the controversial central bank bond transactions. I need to state this very clearly. I left the former administration and established a new government without leaving this party because I wanted to punish those who committed fraud. I did not form a government to allow a new group of people to commit the same mistakes. Until now, I did not reveal my views on the controversial bond transactions, but I am doing so today. Politicians should move away from these investigations. This should be subject to an independent and unbiased judicial process. Politicians cannot resolve this issue. CORP carried out its duties. However, there are debates regarding this report as well. People have been divided on party lines. Some are saying it is correct while some are saying it's wrong. However, all these people are politicians. Therefore, in order to ensure to the people of this country that we are clean and transparent, I will seek legal counsel and direct this issue towards an independent judicial process. Then we will be able to figure out who is right and who is wrong, who is clean and who is corrupt.
Various views have been expressed over the past few days regarding the footnotes of the CORP report into the central bank bond transactions. Reacting to these statements, the Auditor General stated that he did not on any instance agree with footnotes which would cause changes to the Auditor General's report.
The Auditor General will never provide 26 different opinions or multiple opinions on a single issue. If this happens, then the people will lose faith in the audit reports. The policy that we follow is least cost, least risk. The Auditor General's department believes that this is how a government should function. That is how we look at all the activities. The CORP report was prepared based on some parts of the Auditor General's report. However, steps were taken to add footnotes. A majority of the footnotes were placed with regard to points taken from the Auditor General's report. The Auditor General is not linked to any of these footnotes, nor have I given my consent to any of them. The Auditor General's report remains unchanged. There were comments made that the Auditor General agreed to some of the footnotes or agreed to remove some parts from the original report. This has not happened. The Auditor General took part in these discussions and listened to their discussions. That does not mean that the Auditor General agreed with them or made any changes to the report.
The Monetary Board of the Central Bank is scheduled to meet tomorrow. Now, views were expressed in the political arena today that a decision should be reached at the meeting regarding the central bank bond issue.
They are scheduled to look into 3 reports at the Monetary Board meeting tomorrow. It has been said that a separate independent body will be appointed for this purpose. We will place our trust in him and wait for that decision as well. It is clear that when the recommendations of the group appointed by the President is presented to the President, this report will be looked at. Action will be taken based on this report as well. We asked the financial experts at the central bank, what is the amount lost due to the interest? Is it more than 125 billion rupees or is it less? Reveal this to the country. Did foreigners who invested more than $2 billion in treasury bonds withdraw their money or not? Reveal to the country whether the loss in reserves is more than 150 billion rupees or less. What is the financial loss after the goodwill of the central bank was affected? On behalf of the country, I request the Monetary Board that convenes tomorrow to answer these questions and tell us whether these are true or false. The Times paper had reported that the control of shares worth 10 million of NDB is now with perpetual treasuries. The same thing has happened with DFCC and Central Finance. The wife of Lakshman Kirialla is at the top of the board of directors at Central Finance. All the banks are under Kabir Hashim, his friend. This has been carried out in a systematic manner by the Prime Minister. How can you say that the Prime Minister is not involved? The Rajapaksas have been defeated. They have been rejected by the people. If they have been able to pressurize the CORP report to that extent, they will exert even more pressure on the Attorney General's department. There is no doubt about it. There is enough and more proof for the Governor of the Central Bank to go to the CID. Based on Statement 70 of the Bribery Amendment Act number 20 of 1994, there is enough to establish that corruption is a crime. I formulated that act. We have let this go to court. We have let this go to the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption. There has been a CORP report in Parliament. Which government was able to do this? We have to ask about the loss that has been incurred during the 11 years of Niwat Cabral.
Speaking on Newsfirst Newsline segment, Parliamentarian Vasudev Nanayakkara expressed his view on the central bank bond issue.
There is a strong public opinion that has developed within the country. Everyone knows who the thief is and who the thief's father is. Therefore, no one can cover this up. There is a strong public opinion calling for the resignation of the Prime Minister or for the President to remove the current Prime Minister and at least until the end of this investigation, appoint an acting Prime Minister.
Catch the full interwave on Primetime News at 10 p.m. on our sister channel, Sirasa TV.
Meanwhile, former governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Arjuna Mahendran, who was overseas, returned to the island today. The Office of Immigration and Immigration at the airport confirmed this to News First, and a correspondent reported that Mahendran returned from Singapore.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe reached Hong Kong today to attend the 15th Asia-Pacific Conference of German Business 2016.
A statement from the Prime Minister's office noted that the Prime Minister and the delegation reached the Hong Kong International Airport and headed into the city. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe will address the 15th Asian Pacific Conference of German Business tomorrow on the challenges in Asia-Oceania and the vision for the future.
Military spokesperson Brigadier Roshan Seniratne says the government has decided to provide a retirement allowance for disabled veterans of the three armed forces and Sri Lanka Police. The decision was made following a request made to provide a pension to all disabled veterans of the three armed forces and police with a service record of less than 12 years.
All war heroes are being provided with a monthly salary inclusive of all allowances. In addition, they are given a disability allowance. The request is made on the pensions. The President has directed his attention to this matter and had made provisions to provide them with an allowance from February next year. Starting February 2017, they will receive this allowance in addition to the disability allowance that is given. According to the final decision, the pensions that were not provided to the disabled war heroes over 55 years will be given to all disabled war heroes as per the directive of the President. Measures have been taken to provide them with a lifetime pension with a basic salary and a disability allowance. Therefore, the President has taken measures to do the maximum for the war heroes who made sacrifices on behalf of the nation.
Speaker Karu Jayasuriya's younger daughter, Sanjeevani Indira Jayasuriya passed away in London last evening. She was 40 at the time of her death.
Late Mrs. Indira Jayasuriya was diagnosed with terminal cancer during pregnancy and had risked her own life in delaying treatment to give her baby the best chance of surviving. An old girl of St. Bridget's Convent and Devi Balika Vidyalaya, Colombo, Mrs. Jayasuriya obtained her master's degrees in economics from the University of Bradford and a PhD in economics from the London School of Economics. Late Mrs. Jayasuriya served in several UK institutions in a managerial capacity and was serving as a senior sales manager at the time of her death. A mother of two children, Mrs. Jayasuriya was married to human resources specialist Mr. Martin Dicker, a British national. The funeral will be held in the UK in line with her final wishes. On to more local news now. Minister of Foreign Employment Thalatha Athukorala assured that a pension scheme for Sri Lankan migrant workers will be introduced by the beginning of next year. Minister Athukorala made their statement in an exclusive interview with News First today.
At the presidential election, the combined election manifesto with the UNP and the president gave three promises for migrant workers. That was to have a welfare scheme for the migrant families, to implement a pension scheme, and the third was 2.5 interest added to their NRFC accounts. First one we implemented this year on the 8th of January regarding migrant families' welfare. The second thing, pension scheme for migrant workers, hopefully should be launched on the 8th of January. We have to present it in Parliament, and the legal draftsman department will have to, we have to get it approved there. So for those things it might get delayed, but then we will do it. If we fail it on the 8th, but within about another first 3 months we'll do it.
The 28th anniversary convention of the Association of Professional Bankers Sri Lanka commenced in Colombo last evening.
The convention is being held under the theme Thriving in a Digital World. News First is the electronic media sponsor of the event.
We are really now exposed in a way we haven't been, to external discipline. And it's a discipline because we will continue to have to borrow abroad, we'll have to continue to have to access international capital markets in the next 5, 6, 7 years or more. So that discipline is new for us, and we need to absorb that, because if to ignore it would be at our peril. From an economic perspective, arguably the most important insight that we need to absorb is the fact that we can no longer drive growth through incremental labor, which means there's a much higher premium on increasing competitiveness and productivity. Right now in Sri Lanka, we don't have a growth model. So what should be the new growth model? Clearly, because there's a lack of fiscal space and because of the debt dynamics, it'll have to be largely private investment, private sector driven.
The inauguration of the Victims of Crime and Witness Assistance and Protection Division of the Sri Lanka Police was held in Colombo today.
The event was organized by the National Authority for the Protection of Victims of Crime and Witnesses in collaboration with the Sri Lanka Police Department.
When we talk about modernizing our laws, those who want to cause trouble politically misinterpret it or give it the wrong interpretation that we are playing to the tune of the international community. This is not what we are doing. What we are doing is what is right for the people of our country. To be honest, a lot of people are working very hard to take Sri Lanka forward and the people forward. I'm very grateful to everybody who is doing this, having faith in the system. I ask all those who are not understanding this purely because of political mischief, and the media who also sometimes tends to go along with this, to not do this because you're only pulling back the people of your own country.
If you look back, during the last 18 months period, the allegation against police officers about their maybe misconduct, maybe torture or anything, that had been reduced more than 90%. But I am not going to justify if there is any misdoing or omission or lapses on the part of the police, if the rights of the victims and witnesses are not protected, then there will be anarchy situation. It happened in Sri Lanka. Sometimes the victims take the law into their own hand. Why? That they have no confidence in this judicial system. The justice will be done. Unless that there is a proper investigation and a proper prosecution, either by the Attorney General or the police, then the conviction rate is very low. That is one of the criticism against our judiciary and the police.
Farmers in Dambulla are facing numerous issues due to the lack of a reasonable price for big onions.
This is a common sight at House of Big Onion farmers in the Dambulla, Sigiriya, Galevela and Naula areas in the Malabar district. Despite having a good harvest this time around, the lack of a proper price has resulted them in being forced to simply spend their days picking out the rotten big onions and throwing them away.
What we have to do is only select the good ones from the rotten ones. We have no space at home. The harvest is just piling up.
The government comes and hosts conferences. They tell us to cultivate big onions for a better harvest. We purchase seeds and cultivate them. A kilogram is priced at 15,000 to 18,000 rupees. Though we reap a harvest, we have no way to sell it.
We cannot sell big onions for 65 or 70 rupees. We want to sell it for at least 90 or 100 rupees.
On a visit to the Dambulla Economic Centre, it was observed that a kilogram of big onions was purchased from farmers at a price between 60 and 62 rupees. There is no point. We are giving it away. If we keep it at home, it will get spoiled. We are in debt as well. The shop keeps a 3 rupee commission. We have to spend 3,000 rupees to hire a vehicle. We must also purchase the bags. When we come to the market, we have to provide food for the driver. That costs around 3,000 rupees. We are forced to sell a kilogram for around 45 rupees. How are we to repay the loans?
Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake paid homage to the temple of the sacred tooth relic this morning.
The Finance Minister first paid homage to the temple of the sacred tooth relic and obtained blessings for the budget that will be presented on the 10th of November. Chatrika Sirisena was among those present at the occasion. After paying homage to the historic Valbodhya and the Patini Devala in Kandy, the Finance Minister called on the Mahanayakas of the Asgiri chapter and the Malwatu chapter. Thereafter, he responded to statements made by the Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka. I reviewed the statement that he made. He had mentioned about expensive loans and corruption. We have not said anything like that. What we ask is how much was spent on the port. Weren't loans given at an interest rate of 8%? Roads have been constructed. Less than 22% was done, and these have been paid. This was not a grant or a donation. This was a loan. If we can take loans at an interest of 2 or 3%, we will take it. If there are commercial loans, we will take them as well. However, we are not prepared to take loans at 8 or 9% interest. We will also show what loans have been taken. They are saying that it is not over 2%. If this is so, we will repay them at 2%. This is an unfair statement.
And with that, we wrap up primetime news for tonight. For the News1st team, I'm Azra Hassan.
I'm Joel Outskoon. Take care. Good night.